Good evening, everybody, or afternoon, however you want to term 5:30 p.m. Brian Neubert here from goldenblack.com. Live in Mackey Arena following Purdue's 78-70 win over Wisconsin to close the regular season. This is your goldenblack.com wrap video. It is brought to you by our friends at the Purdue Club Hotel. Thank you to them so much for their support over the years and still to this day. I want to thank Ross-Ade also. There was a robust crowd of Purdue fans waiting here for me to come film this video. Clearly they wanted to be a live studio audience. Ross-Ade was kind enough to stand out here for a while and entertain them by signing autographs and taking pictures. So thank you to him. I'm sure they appreciated that, yet still, once I sat down, they all left. I don't know what that was all about. Anyway. So this is your goldenblack.com wrap video, as I think I already said, following the 78-70 win over Wisconsin. The actual game really kind of taken a back seat to everything else going on here today. This was senior day for a beloved senior class. This was a long-scheduled party to celebrate a outright Big Ten title for Purdue, and it was the regular season finale against Wisconsin. After Purdue had already wrapped up the conference championship, they're probably the NCAA tournament's #1 overall seed, maybe. I don't really pay much attention to the ebbs and flows of that #1 overall seed as much as I know Purdue's going to be a #1 seed and they're going to play through Indy. But obviously Purdue doesn't want to lose this game. You want to win on senior day 100 times out of 100 times. You want to go unbeaten at home 100 times out of 100 times. Long story short, Purdue wanted to win. How about that for analysis? Purdue wanted to win this game. There's just a lot to talk about after this, not just the game, but the occasion. And I don't really know where to begin, so I will just kind of talk about all of it. I have nothing to do tonight. I'm guessing none of you have anything to do tonight. So I'm just going to talk for like 40 minutes. How about that? So the game. Purdue's been really consistent this season. I think they've shown up for every game. And by shown up, I mean I think every college basketball team gets a couple passes a year. It is a game played by the most volatile commodity on earth, the 20-something-year-old male. So it's just natural that there's going to be a couple games a year where you just don't have it. You just don't show up. And Purdue has not had that game. When they've lost 3 times, right? And they've had some close games. It's been about turnovers. The losses have been about turnovers. And Purdue played okay in a couple of those games. The Nebraska game was just a boat race. I'm not sure anybody was going in there and winning on that night. But Ohio State, Northwestern, those were turnovers. Turnovers and points off turnovers specifically. But by and large, Purdue has shown up every game this season. They've been really consistent. They've been really good. Not perfect. They haven't won every game by 20, 25 points, nor does it matter that they didn't. It really doesn't matter all that much how many you win by. Purdue has been really good pretty much every game this season. And I think that's a really high compliment to a team that has matured from last season, that has really benefited from experience coming out of last season, and it's just better. I think Ross-Ade is a much better player. I think Braden Smith has transformed this team. I think Lance Jones completed this team. I think this is a really focused team. I think this is a team that plays angry when necessary. And I just think this season has almost been a best-case scenario to this point. Now, to this point is a big qualifier, because obviously what's to come the rest of this month is a really big deal and will ultimately decide how this season is perceived, both outside of Purdue and probably around Purdue. Fair or not, it's the nature of the NCAA tournament. But I think that Purdue, up to this point, has done everything it could possibly do. It has been as good as you wanted it to be, expected it to be, and then some. And that's a pretty high compliment to these guys, because they could have, just kind of either felt sorry for themselves coming out of how last season ended, or just taking things for granted. It's really easy to do when you're as good as Purdue is, and the Big Ten wasn't great this year. You could have phoned in a couple and probably won those games with a 75% effort, something like that. I don't think they ever did that, and I think that's a really high compliment to this team and bodes really well for them moving forward. Purdue wins this game by 8 points. It was basically 10 points. A.J. Storr steals the ball from Chase Martin while he's dribbling out the clock, dunks it, so a 10-point win goes to an 8-point win. Not that it matters, except for some of you with ulterior interests in how this game turned out. A pretty good performance. Purdue closed this game really strong. The proverbial winning instinct, killer instinct, whatever you want to call it. I like winning instinct because it's not as violent, and I have very delicate sensibilities. Winning instinct. You saw it at the end. Purdue made every shot that it needed to make. It got stops at the end when it needed to get stops. Same thing you saw the other night at Illinois. Just a game today that really unfolded kind of similarly. And that brings me to my next point about this game and really this season as a whole. Purdue, you know what they shot from three-point range last season? Like 32%, 33% tops, somewhere in the middle. So I'm either rounding down or rounding up, whatever. But it wasn't great. And it's okay to be like a 33% three-point shooting team. But when you have Ross-Ade and your roster is built around offensive skill and around three-point shooting, you need to be better than that. You really do. And that was the single biggest albatross. It's a large seafaring bird that somehow became analogous with something that holds us back. I really don't know why that poor bird got associated with such a negative thing. But that was Purdue's albatross last year. It's Achilles' heel. I won't tell you that story. It's soft underbelly. Its chief vulnerability was three-point shooting. It ended their season last year in the NCAA tournament way sooner than it should have ended. Now, before you yell at me in the comments, yes, more went into it than just three-point shooting. But the single biggest thing that ended their season was 5 of 26, or whatever it was, 5 of 27, 5 of 24, somewhere in that range, at the wrong time. That is the nature of three-point shooting, however. But that was not an outlier performance by Purdue last year. They were not a great shooting team to begin with. So them going 5 of 24 isn't like the Golden State Warriors from 10 years ago going 0 for 40, whatever. I'm just making up numbers at this point. This year, they went from 32% last year to it being a consistent weakness or a consistent wild card where you had no idea what was going to happen on any given night, to a deal where Purdue right now is shooting like 41% as a team. You got guys up and down the line, 40-something percent, 40-something percent, 40-something percent. Ross-Ade, 50%, whatever it is, 1 of 2. I think I saw yesterday's 1 of 1. I thought there was a miss in there somewhere. I know the 1 was ruled a 2, but I thought there was another one that was a miss. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Purdue's a really good shooting team, a really consistent shooting team. They've had some nights where they haven't been as good as others, but they never really bottomed out to the point it cost them a game. I think that they're better at generating good shots. They're making better decisions. Ross-Ade's improvement, Braden Smith's improvement have really unlocked a lot in this team, but they're taking really good shots, and they're making them now, whereas they didn't last year, and that's part of this team's consistency. On top of that winning instinct I talked about before, Purdue has a knack for timely shots. Look at the Illinois game. Look how they closed that game. They were 8 of 10 in the second half from three-point range. I don't know what they were in the first half, so I can't do the math here, but they were really good in the second half again in this game. That speaks to fresh legs, too, by the way. I might add. Caleb Furst makes, to the best of my recollection this season, his biggest shot of the season. That 3 from the corner after Wisconsin was down like 5 or something like that. Fletcher Lawyer's 4-point play after the Miles Colvin steal was a really big play. Purdue makes the right shot at the right time. And that's an enormous difference in this team, among many enormous differences in this team. And something that really bodes well for them moving into the NCAA tournament, that they have not shown a penchant for having that game that's just going to show up and just blow you up. Now, the basketball's full of air. It bounces funny sometimes. Weird things do happen. The unexpected often happens. So you never say never. But there hasn't been the volatility in the three-point shooting that there was last year. And that has to really, really make people feel good about Purdue moving forward here into the postseason. All right, so that's the game. I really don't have much more than that. It was definitely a game. The bigger issue here today, well, actually, let me say one more thing. Purdue hasn't lost very often this season. When it has, and this comes to mind because this almost kind of materialized on paper in this game, when it has, the garbage points have been a big part of it. So you see Wisconsin getting 17 points off turnovers. That's not all that far off the average of 20 that have come from Purdue's 3 losses. There were 15-second chance points for Wisconsin. Now, a lot of those were long rebounds. Again, the ball's full of air. It does funny things sometimes. That's not always on the team that allows those rebounds. Sometimes it's just life happens, But the turnovers is Purdue's albatross. Once again, we come back to the albatross. The poor albatross is just flying over the sea looking for fish, and I keep dragging it into this rap video. I think they eat fish, right? Yeah, fish. Of course they would. They do. Anyway, the turnover thing remains Purdue's greatest existential threat. The thing that would be last year's three-point shooting, where Purdue last year could go 2 of 20 from 3, would cost them a game. Purdue this year could have that 15 turnover, but 20 points off turnovers for the opponent game that could really loom large at the wrong time. When you look at Northwestern in Evanston, when you look at Ohio State in Columbus, when you look at Nebraska in Lincoln, all of those games featured really hot shooting by the opponent, but none of that shooting would have mattered had Purdue not turned the ball over in a way that led to scoring opportunities for the opponent. So that's your hot button this year going into the postseason. The turnovers obviously are the thing Purdue's got to have its head on a swivel about at all times. And I'm not in any way, shape, or form suggesting they don't, but I'm just saying that's the viper lying in the weeds here. All right, now we've got snakes involved. So obviously the bigger story here today was senior day. I really have said everything I could possibly ever say about Zach-Edey. Best case scenario career, best case scenario kid, person, human being, leader, embraced by the Purdue community, embraced the Purdue community, was grateful for his opportunity here, which is not something you can say for a lot of guys who reached the level he reached. I think he generally was a guy that was more about Purdue, more about his teammates than he was himself. I think he's demonstrated that in a front-facing manner, too, during his last 2 years at Purdue when he was one of the biggest stars in college sports. I would not bet against him in the NBA. I know toxic social media world will do whatever they can to tear people down, but there's a place for him in that league, even if the league is trending away from people like him. Not people like him, players like him. That's really all I can say about Zach-Edey because it's all been said, and I can't say it in any better, more definitive terms than I already have. So I'm just going to skip right over him. It's been a long-standing rap video policy. Also, that when Purdue has a great player, has a player of the year, has an All-American, we don't need to talk about it after every game. It's understood. It's just part of the landscape here, right? So no disrespect to Zach-Edey that I'm kind of fast-forwarding through his part of this. Awesome player. The best, arguably, to ever do it at Purdue. The first player, let me see if I can do this right. 15, see that right over my head? Retired on the spot. He didn't even get out of the building, and his banner was hanging up in Mackey Arena. I don't know if that's a first in college basketball history or what, but he's one of a kind in college basketball history, so it would certainly be appropriate for that to be a first in college basketball history. Mason Gillis. Let's talk about Mason Gillis, shall we? Great leader, really good player, elite role player who became something more than just an elite role player. He became just a terrific player for Purdue. Through his ups and downs, this is a guy, once again, part of the reason this all works at Purdue this year is you have 3 guys on this team, Mason Gillis, Ethan Morton, Caleb First, who have started a ton of games at Purdue, helped Purdue win a ton of games, and they are obviously playing a little bit lesser roles. Saying Mason Gillis plays a lesser role is preposterous because he's your sixth starter. He's essentially a co-starter with Trey Kaufman-Renn. He didn't start a game this year. He does share minutes to a certain extent. He has earned more than that at Purdue. It's just not the reality of the situation this year. Purdue has a lot of guys, and Trey Kaufman-Renn is coming. He is a big part of their future. And Purdue committed to some things they want to do matchups-wise, get more scoring on the floor. What do they have to show for it? One of the best scoring offenses in college basketball. Gillis is a huge part of that. I'm not saying he's not. But he has been the ultimate team guy. Everything he does, right? Everything he says, everything he does is winning stuff. It is just winning stuff. And if there was any one guy on this team that could have derailed the chemistry, here's your guy, because he's earned more than this. He put 5 years into this, and I'm in no way, shape, or form saying he should be dissatisfied with what he's gotten. He's been an awesome player for Purdue this year. He enjoys winning. He's gotten, I don't know how many degrees now, how many he'll leave with. He got great grades. This has been a great opportunity for him. He's been very grateful for everything as well. But this is a guy who has very easily, in a different world or a different set of circumstances, would have started every game this year and played 30, 32 minutes every single game. What he ended up with isn't really all that far off of that, and he's done more than enough, I'm sure, to be personally satisfied by things. All players want more. They all want more. Everybody wants to play more. Everybody wants to shoot more. Everybody wants to just contribute more. And what Mason Gillis did was he took a little bit of a lesser role, not a big bite out of the prior role, not even a lesser role from last season, really. Because Caleb first started a lot of games last year, too. And he maximized it to the furthest extent. He played his you-know-what off. He was a guy with that rare, and I'm, again, talking in the post-tense guy here, past tense, about a guy here who still has a bunch of games left to play. But Mason Gillis is everything that Purdue basketball purports itself to be, likes to present itself as. A guy who, a program that really gives great effort, is all about winning, is pretty selfless. But the effort, the energy, the leadership, the selflessness, those things were all reflected in Mason Gillis. He made a ton of shots. He got a ton of rebounds. He changed a ton of games just by chasing basketballs. That's a very unique skill. Just going after a basketball changes the course of a game. Really hard to do. Only a select few have that ability. Ethan Morton, obviously, another one of those guys I just talked about. You know, he was a big-time contributor for a really good team his sophomore year. Kind of a jack-of-all-trades sort of guy who could just pop in there to do whatever you wanted. From a basketball perspective, obviously. Had to take a lesser role this year. Had to take a little bit of a lesser role last year. Wait, that's actually not true. Took a bigger role last year. Maybe was a little bit of a bad fit because what he was able to do in shorter bursts as a sophomore, maybe much like a couple of guys Purdue had prior, Nojel Eastern being one, Matt Harms being another, didn't necessarily translate over bigger minutes. He's always a guy who has, confidence has driven his productivity. And it was when things maybe weren't going terribly smoothly last year, maybe his confidence ebbed a little bit. But he had to accept a reduced role this year. But the most positive team first guy you have, I don't know who it was, maybe Caleb First. When they were playing the videos up there, the little testimonials for senior day from the teammates of the seniors, I think it might have been Caleb First who said that Ethan Morton was the best teammate he's ever had. And watch him. You will see a guy who is actively helping teammates via his experience. He's the first off the bench, to greet people, perhaps the second after Carson Barrett, who has an explosive first step going out to really, really embrace his teammates. But Ethan Morton, you see him helping Camden Heide. And look, just being real here, Camden Heide is effectively replacing Ethan Morton right now in the rotation. It speaks volumes about Ethan Morton, that he is helping that process along, essentially, by really, really seemingly helping Camden Heide learn. And Heide is doing much the same thing that Ethan Morton did as a sophomore. Multi-positional defensive value, rebounding, make an open shot every now and then, just make good decisions, don't do anything outside your comfort zone, don't do anything outside your strengths, stuff like that. This is going way too long, but there's 6 of these dudes. Lance Jones. I mean, there's obviously, I don't know if I'll ever see again a guy who's out of place for 1 year, who's beloved more by a fan base and a university community than Lance Jones, and someone with whom that love was reciprocal. This was the shining success story of the grad transfer era COVID year window. This was perfect for everyone involved. This made a great team even greater, and this gave a kid a great opportunity to really show everybody what he's all about. People know him now. This will enhance his professional stock wherever that his prospects may lie. He had fun. He had a blast. And that's what this is supposed to be all about. This is a game played by kids. Just because, there's a lot of them who are 24, 25 years old now, that doesn't mean this isn't a kid's game. And Lance Jones is one of the true success stories in that regard. I'm looking forward to a day where college basketball is not ruled by 24, 25-year-olds, whatever it might be, as the last 2 seasons basically have been. But every time I look at that with distaste, I think about Lance Jones and what an unbelievable basketball story this was, what an unbelievable human story this was. Just can't say enough about him. And I keep saying I can't say enough about all of these guys. And yet here I am going 22 minutes. Chase Martin and Carson Barrett, I don't want to lump them together necessarily, but, Purdue genuinely believes they have the best scout team in college basketball. People always say that, but people also always say things they don't mean. Purdue genuinely believes they have the best scout team in America. Chase Martin, Carson Barrett are huge parts of that. I don't know if anybody even knows this, but Carson Barrett has been playing with an injured knee most of the season, if not all the season. I asked him the other day, I can't remember what he said, but there's something there that he's been practicing through all year long. And these guys don't get recognition. They don't get a lot of credit for a team's success, but these are 2 guys, perfect teammates, come from Purdue stock, have been perfect representatives of Purdue, and just, again, can't say enough about those guys either. So, all right, so that's 6 seniors, all of which I can't say enough about, right? So I think that about covers it. So, look, this is the longest rap video in recorded history. No pun intended, but that did work out really well, I will say. God bless you people for watching this stuff. If you got to the end of this, I don't even know what to tell you. You are the best. Or the worst, one or the other. So, hey, look, thank you to the Purdue Club Hotel for your support. As always, we appreciate it very much. And I will talk to you guys again after Purdue plays, whoever the hell they play, in their first game, not the first round, Purdue's first game of the Big Ten tournament in Minneapolis next week at the Target Center. So, thank you for watching. Thank you for reading. Thank you for listening. And thank you for processing our materials. However it is you process our materials, please like and subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube. Also, please remember we have a website, goldenblack.com, that if you're willing to sit through 24 minutes of this, chances are you are degenerate enough for the $100 a year it costs to join our website to be worth your time and money. So please keep that in mind, goldenblack.com. A lot of people think I work for YouTube. I don't work for YouTube. Goldenblack.com. So, thanks, everybody.